So, welcome everyone to today's episode of Everyday Alex. I think we're going to be consistent this week in terms of uploads. So, we've obviously got today's episode. There's then a new episode of In Therapy coming out tomorrow. Then there should be live episodes of Everyday Alex on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That is my plan this week. So today I wanted to talk about the power of honesty. This was something that came out of some of the feedback of the episodes last week of In Therapy, where I was working with Lauren. If you haven't checked out those episodes already, then please do. And a few people were saying that I was quite strong. I was quite direct in some of the things that I was saying. And there's been a few comments at a few points of some of the episodes where I think people are surprised that I tend not to mince my words. And I tend to sometimes, particularly when I'm working one-on-one with people, I tend to be quite direct in pointing out things that are going on. And I wanted to speak to why I think that that can be so important. And I think it is important to say that there is contextual relevance here, that sometimes what's true in some contexts of being very direct is perhaps less helpful in other contexts. So I think it's always important to be sort of sensitized to and responding to whoever it is that you're working with. But ultimately, my philosophy is that the more we kind of gentle, the more soft sometimes we are, the more we're not giving people the opportunity to really see what needs to be changed. Changing ourselves and changing things in our lives is a difficult enough process for many of us. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of patience along the way. And in my experiences, often the more we sugarcoat things and the more we try to soften things and the more that we're too kind of light in what we say, that we're often not then giving people the opportunity to really see what's going on. And one of my goals therapeutically, in fact, often before, almost always before I go into any kind of intervention work when I'm working with people therapeutically, is we need to be on the same page, as in me and the person I'm working with, of what we need to work on, like what the real issue is. If you can see it, you don't have to be it. And we need to have that kind of shared agreement of what it is that we need to work with. And it's an art that I hope I've got quite good at over the years, being able to be very direct with people and sometimes say things to people that perhaps others wouldn't know how to do in a way that people can really hear. Part of that is someone being ready, and someone having come on a journey quite often to get to the point to ask for help. That at that point, part of, I think, showing up to that therapeutic process is really showing up with truth and honesty about what's going on. And I think about some of the transformational moments in my own life, both when I've been a client therapeutically or friends and family that have helped me see things that otherwise I couldn't see. And that kind of radical honesty has been really important. I remember a famous conversation that I've talked about many times with my uncle, which was the sort of turning point conversation on my journey to recovery from ME chronic fatigue. And through that conversation, I was helped to realize that if I wanted the circumstances of my life to change, then I was going to have to be the one to change them. And at 18 years old, one could say that was, I remember my mother at the time, I think she thought it was pretty cruel in a sense that this 18-year-old was sort of left with this sense of this burden that I was going to have to be the one to turn things around. But there was also a great gift in that honesty. I was reflecting on this, and I was thinking that often what goes wrong in intimate relationships and friendships and family relationships is often not actually so much the things that we say or people say to us. It's often the things that we don't say. It's the points where we're harboring frustration around something or hurt about something. And the result is we get more distant from that person, that we suddenly, because we feel this sort of anger and this irritation or this hurt with this person, we sort of don't want to be around them in the same way as we normally do, because it makes us feel all those feelings. And actually, the thing that is loving, the thing that is kind, is to speak those words, to find a way together, to give the opportunity to find a way together, to process and to work through. Now, doing it in a way which is compassionate, which is skillful, which is a genuine attempt to find a solution is obviously really important. Trying to speak honest words, difficult words to speak from a place of attack and a place of judgment. When we attack people, they defend. So when we start to shame someone or make them wrong or blame them for things, you almost guarantee that what you get is a defense, because anyone that is attacked defends themselves. So the skill is to do it in a way which is not attacking, which is not critical, which is not judgmental. And that's one of my real goals therapeutically, to build enough trust, to build enough rapport in the space that we can then get down to having a really honest conversation about what's going on. The crux of it is the things that either the patterns or the issues, the things that are causing the problems, they're still causing the problems if we don't speak about them. So what we resist will persist. If we pretend those issues are not there, if we just, I don't want to talk about that, it's too awkward, that's sort of too delicate, it doesn't mean that the issue goes away. The issue's still there, and the issue's likely causing a lot of suffering. Like, we take the context of the sessions with Lauren last week in therapy. And I was talking about that pattern of almost self-harm in terms of her relationship with herself. Me not talking about that doesn't mean that issue goes away. But actually, by talking about it, we have the potential to change it. We have the potential to do something about it. Now, not everyone is ready for or able to have this level of honesty. And I think particularly when it comes to family, there are appropriate judgments to be made sometimes about, if I speak these words, this person may not be able to hear it. And the danger is that there's going to be, that it's going to be too much of them, and it's going to be genuinely hurtful to them. One of the things that people often, I think a chapter people go through if they start to process sort of complex trauma as a child, or developmental trauma, not having had all their needs met as a child, and they start to get in touch with the inevitable anger and rage towards parents, they can think, I've got to express all of this. I've got to tell my parents all the ways they screwed up my childhood. And although it can feel important sometimes to speak those words and get them out, it's not always the most helpful thing to start loading all that at parents. Sometimes we need to write letters that don't get sent. Sometimes we need to scream into pillows. And sometimes we do need to speak some of those words. So this is not a sort of whatever you feel, you vomit and you throw out into the world. But it is, if there are things that we've thought about and we've reflected upon, and they've become barriers between us and other people, they've caused us to become more distant from the people that we love and we care about, then if we speak those words and we find the way to do that, often that creates more intimacy. Our fear is it will push them away. Done in the right way, normally it will actually draw them closer. One of the things that was interesting that Lauren shared with me in one of our subsequent sessions that we haven't released yet is actually some of her family watched the episodes, and it brought them closer to her because they saw some of the pain and some of the struggles that she was going through. Honesty and authenticity is a deeply, deeply powerful thing in our lives. And I would also say, and this is something that I hold very delicately, I guess, in my own thinking, is with great power comes great responsibility. When we're working therapeutically with someone, we have great power in that moment because someone is vulnerable and someone is seeking help and opening up. And being too hard can be very, very hurtful. But being too gentle and too soft we don't get to deal with the issues, that's also not helpful either. And in fact, in the therapeutic coaching practitioner training, particularly at level 3, one of the particular skills that we're helping people to cultivate is to find the edge, to really, and that is it's not an intellectual skill, although intellect can be useful sometimes. It's a kind of energetic skill. It's to be able to feel into how hard can I push here, and sometimes pushing that little bit to the edge and then just backing off a little bit. And that's a lot of what I think as you see these episodes unfold. And by the way, I'm not perfect and I don't get this right all of the time. And part of what is quite vulnerable for me about sharing these episodes is this is not kind of highlight reel. This is not like the best 5 minutes of a session. We do edit out sometimes things that are not relevant to the narrative, and we do edit things out where things are being repeated a few times that perhaps we can condense to help the story move along a little bit. But this is not a highlight reel. This is like me just doing what I do. And you also would have seen that with the Therapeutic Tuesday sessions. I think we released pretty much every single one that we filmed. So I didn't sort of choose the best. And something that's quite vulnerable for me sometimes, of putting out there my work, knowing that I can be criticized and knowing that not everything that I do is perfect. But it is sort of developing that skill of trying to find that edge where we're helping people to see the things that they need to see for things to be different. And I think that authenticity, I think that honesty, I think are deeply powerful things. And I know that in my life, I've had some tricky conversations with family and certainly with friends of mine over the years. And it's almost like the question that I ask myself sometimes, if I'm feeling upset or hurt or irritated with a friend, is do I love this person enough to have the difficult conversation? Because if I really love that person, I really care about that person, I'm willing to go through the awkwardness of having this conversation that, of course, I don't want to have, maybe they don't want to have, but I know that on the other side, the friendship, if the friendship is meant to be, it will be strengthened, not weakened, even if it's a bit delicate for a period of time as we're processing and working through. So my question really to you guys is, what's been your experience of having honest, authentic, difficult conversations, and what helps you, what supports you in doing that? I'd be curious to hear about where in your lives perhaps you've done that and you've noticed that things have gone deeper with someone, that there's been a positive outcome from doing that. I'd be really curious to hear people's thoughts and reflections around that. So tomorrow we're going to have the latest episode with Sally. So we followed Sally, I think it was for 3 episodes initially. We had her video diaries of the 90-day program. Then we had her first in-person session with me. We've got tomorrow the first half of her second session with me. We'll have the second half next week. So if you've been wondering how Sally's getting on, we're going to find out tomorrow. And we're going to be talking about the theme of the importance of trusting your body and listening to your body, one that I think is really important. So good. I hope that's been helpful. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And yeah, please do look out. If you haven't already watched last week's episode of In Therapy, please do. And I look forward to share with you this week's episode tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everyone.